What does your inspirational yogi tea tag say, though? Mine says, when your inner and outer worlds harmonize, your relationships do too.
Okay. I'm going to skip the last part. However, we're spilling the tea on the first part.
Yeah, that's true.
That's providential.
This is the providential tea, everyone. This is stress relief.
So what are we spilling the tea on?
Okay, today we are spilling the tea on outward appearances.
Outward appearances, people, I think it's kind of turned it meshes with people pleasing. But I mean, I realize finally in my 60th decade of life, that I'm a little more comfortable in my skin. However, my skin is
That's
a little
so
more comfortable.
Refreshing, though.
Well, it is refreshing, but then you look at your skin, you go, "Ow!" My outward appearances are perishing, but what I am, but so, I guess what I'm trying to say is, yeah, I'm more comfortable in that, but I still have these moments, such as the ballroom night, Friday night,
which was approximately 2 nights ago.
2 nights ago. I'm still scarred.
We're still scarred.
And I realized how much I can still be a very young woman, insecure, uncertain, because of my outward appearance or because of my performance, because I say the wrong things, I stutter over my words, all this outward stuff. And after giving someone a lecture, and trying to speak life to him and say, it's really about the heart. It's really about the heart. So I guess what I want to get to is, how do we handle this culture with its outward appearances, and turn it into a place where we can be life-giving or feel life-gived in it?
Do you feel like, for you personally, do you feel like societal or cultural expectations play a role? And you said something, you feel like an insecure young self versus a free woman.
Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
I mean, most definitely.
Like at the ballroom, where you say,
like the ballroom,
feel
you see all the very
naked and
beautiful,
afraid.
the beautiful dancers who look absolutely amazing. But at the same time, I notice it's the pressure that I put on myself often, because I was stressed out when I went to New York City. Like, what am I going to wear in New York City? Because I am very, very comfortable in my farmer wear. Thank you, Taco Bell. I'm very, very comfortable in these kind of socks, in my Keens. I'm very comfortable with my dog tearing up my rug. But in that, but I was really concerned about, like, what was I going to wear in New York? I mean, how was I going to fit in? I had to go to this trade show. What was everybody else going to,
So do you feel like it's like a people-pleasing thing that comes out, or thinking, what is everyone else going to think of me?
I think there's a business time that you have to rise to the occasion.
Yeah,
you do have to rise to the occasion. But it's also angsty where, what is it I'm supposed to look like in New York City?
Right.
What is it where I'm supposed to, what am I going to wear in Switzerland, which was a beautiful trip, but what am I going to do to stay warm? But at the same time, what do you wear in the unknown situation? So I don't know. And then it's even the expectation of, it's walking into a church or walking into a coffee shop, and I've kind of blown it away in a negative sense. Is like, I will walk in, I will feel totally and completely comfortable having, be out in the garden sweating and whatever, put on a pair of shoes, make sure I wash my hands and splash water on my face, but I'll go pick up food from a really fancy restaurant and it won't bother me. Even though it's just kind of crazy, because you get, I guess, if people look at me, but I don't really care.
Do you think it's because you
Yeah.
don't feel as much like yourself when you have other things to prepare for, like New York City, ballroom?
I think the unknown has a lot to do with
Yeah.
it.
When
I
you suddenly feel
think.
out of your zone,
I
like you
feel
said, you're
out
more
of my
comfortable in
zone.
farm wear. Just like I feel comfortable in my onesie that I got for $5 and spandex.
You're running.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
even feel this weird sense of,
Yeah.
it sounds weird to say, oh, I feel most beautiful when I'm running, but it's something deeper than just, it's something I feel inwardly
Right.
versus just being exterior. So I'm
But
the same way.
think
Yeah.
no, but I think it does where it goes into the heart issue. I think it's when I feel insecure in the role that I'm having to play.
Yeah.
Whereas
Where you don't
going
feel
on
as much like
well,
yourself.
even going on
Yeah.
vacation, because you're going to a hotel and you're going, this hotel is too fancy for me, and I'm supposed to be a certain way, and oh my goodness, I look like American. Well, yeah, hello. I wasn't cussing.
And her Swiss adventure.
But I was, I am
Alps.
American. That's just where God placed me, and so I lived that way. But I noticed when I went to New York, I'm like, I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb. And turns out, I was on a segment of people where they were from the Midwest, so I felt very comfortable with them. But I think it's the role of my heart is when I'm lifting my soul, and we've talked about this before, when I'm lifting my soul to something else, I'm worried about, what do I need to do to look good for the company I'm with? How am I
almost
going?
like not letting somebody else down.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
Well,
What will
and-
other people think of me? What will they think of me if I don't look like X, Y, or Z?
Right.
Or even down to like, okay, for me, it's not just clothing too, but even sometimes my personality of having this on off. Okay, don't be funny but not too funny. Be nice
Yeah.
but not too
Yes.
nice. Be outgoing
Yes.
but not too outgoing.
Yeah.
So it's like you're altering your clothes and your character in certain situations.
I'm
Yeah.
totally with you. And
Yeah.
there was and the older I've gotten, the more silly I've gotten, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do stick my foot in my mouth a lot. But you said something really important is, okay, I didn't realize, like, a couple of times I went too far with what I was saying, and it wasn't rude. Well, one time it was just funny, and I just was being me, and I was being, it's giddiness. And I can't say it was classy. I can say it was on the borderline of crassy. But then there was another time that I honestly just felt like I needed to pursue somebody and not apologize as much, say that didn't come out right. And I was encouraged not to do that. Sometimes I go overboard. So I guess what it is not, it is this awareness of being 60 years old, 60 years old for the second year, and not knowing how to behave in every situation. And I thought it would be further along. And I've said that before.
See, I
you
feel
know?
like it's so funny because from just my observational standpoint, I always see you as someone who seems like you can mesh into any kind of college situation. Because there's certain people, I don't know if you do this too, but sometimes I'll go into a certain environment or social gathering, somewhere where I very much don't naturally feel just like myself. And I'll think of people and almost imagine, okay, what would they do in this situation? How would they behave? And there's one other friend and then you who I think of every time because you always, like, to me, seem like you're the kind of person who can totally, like, own a room with complete and utter confidence, even ballroom dancing. So it's
I
interesting to
appreciate
me.
you
Like,
saying
it's
I
not
think
that
I'm
I
faking really well. I really do think I'm faking. I do. I just walk in. I just say, okay. I mean, it's really, that's nice. I appreciate it. But sometimes I just feel like, okay, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And walk in.
Well, and I say it's
you know?
interesting to hear from your perspective because I think a lot of people see people just on their exterior and think, oh, they're naturally totally comfortable in this environment. When I wonder how many people are having the same train of thoughts, maybe.
Yes.
I mean, maybe not everybody, but I wonder how many people get really in their head too. Because I'm the same way. I'm not naturally I sometimes feel more like a chameleon.
But I've seen you be very bold and fearless, and you stand up for what you believe in. So, I mean, on your exterior, you look fierce. You know, not fierce, witchy, mean, but fierce, strong, you know, empowered kind of thing. So that's interesting that we almost have this dichotomy going on with this. What do we do with that?
Wow. I feel like that's why I'm still learning, because
Yeah.
I think that sometimes I truly, genuinely feel most like myself, but sometimes it's with very few people that I feel like I can truly not just be unfiltered, but be myself around. I don't feel like I have to put on a facade. And obviously you're one of those people. But I also feel like there are so many situations where it's this constant conscious thought of, oh, I have to power the switch on. Now I have to turn it off. Now I have to dial it down. Where I almost feel like I have a puppeteer or something, you know, instead of just feeling like a free woman.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's if I'm doing things in solitude where I feel most like myself, you know?
I think there is something about that because being totally ourselves, have we ever felt in a situation where we felt totally ourselves, you know, when we're around people?
Yeah.
I mean, well, obviously with close friends, but maybe we're overthinking it. Because,
We do overthink a lot of things.
Yeah, we do. And
I
maybe that
overthink
is
a lot of things.
But the thing is, the experience is still real to
Yeah.
most women walking into a room, an unknown situation. And perhaps men, I have no idea. Because we don't know that, but there has to be angst there walking into a room. Sorry about the fly, but so I mean, I think there's, you know, how do we get to the point where our hearts are being real?
Sorry, I'm thinking of the Phil Collins song where he's like, I don't care anymore.
I know, really, the heavy drums. Like, I want to bang that drum. How do we just not care? But even then, like, I don't know. It's not even that I don't want to care anymore. How do I walk into a room and just be sincere and live and be life-giving and be honest and authentic?
Yeah.
That is probably the heart of what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I feel that.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I say there are rare times where I feel like I can completely, quote unquote, be myself. But I also think that if I were completely myself, it's not always the best of my colors, if that makes sense. But I think it is I don't think even having a conscious effort of, I don't want to say fixing yourself for other people, but like you said, being sincere and intentional with people, it's almost like a brain shift. Whereas I think, at least for myself, my first concerns are, okay, how do I look?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, even like not wearing makeup.
Yeah.
I mean, I have on some tinted moisturizer, but, you know, my not having on my brows or my winged eyeliner is a little bit scary. Not scary, but, you know, I'm always conscious about what do people think about how I look and how I'm dressed. Then I go from my face to my body. How does my body look? Do I look fat when I wear this dress? Do I, you know, look myself up from head to toe, do a bazillion 360s and like 2 or 3 different mirrors? And then, you know, part 3 before I go out is thinking, okay, almost this subconscious question of what do I have to be like? How am I going to be perceived? Because apparently to myself, it's the end of the world if I'm unliked by somebody. But I do, it sounds really shallow to say, oh, I care so much about my appearance. But I think a lot of women and men do, but it's something that almost feels like instilled in my DNA.
Yes.
Which I'm trying to resist, you know?
Yes. I know, and I think that's the good fight. But
Yeah.
I forgot what I was going to say.
It's okay. I forget a lot of things I'm going to say these days.
No.
I'll have
Go
a
into it
spot of
because it
tea.
was down the whole thing about how do we get to that point where we're not so concerned, so wrapped up in the way we're looking that we can get back to being authentic and real. And we seem to expend an enormous amount of time. Maybe it's just me and you, and the rest of the world is really normal, and we're just psycho.
Yeah, maybe that's probably it.
But I've heard from other women that they felt this, and I've heard this from young women. I've heard this from older women. that we just spend an enormous amount of brain power and even emotional energy on worrying about this kind of thing.
All these like creating all these hypotheticals before you even get there.
Yes.
And some of them might come true, but it's realizing it's not the end of the world.
I think, well, maybe that's it. Maybe we're ranking ourselves. We're so used to being graded.
Yeah.
In certain ways that we're still, and then as you get older, and this is where I wanted to lead to, because there's this big stink on Madonna.
Oh.
And she did some sort of, like the Grammys. I haven't watched the Grammys in 800 years. And I'm looking pretty good for an 800-year-old. But I haven't watched any show like that. And we do refer to culture a lot because we are in this world, not of it. So she came out and apparently had a lot of work done on her face, supposedly.
Okay, Yes.
When I saw the picture, everybody said they were gasping, who is this? I just thought, I don't know about you, but I'm used to Madonna every 10 years coming out and doing something different. It's not shocking to me that she's doing anything because that is Madonna. That is what she does. I think what's more shocking to me is, I want to compare it to this movie. And I'm only speaking about these people as public figures. I'm not speaking to what their life is like. I'm not speaking to the moral codes. I'm not speaking to their talent or lack thereof, because they're both, the two women I'm mentioning are highly talented. And I'm not slamming them. I'm just saying what I've noticed. So then earlier before that, I watched this movie with one of my daughters. It was called The Lost City, and it had Sandra Bullock in it, who is a very comedic actress. I just love, everybody loves Sandra Bullock. She's fun to watch. But in that, I noticed something about 5 minutes in the movie, and what's different about her? And all I could say is, I think she had work on her face. That's all I could think of. Is somehow, it was minor. It wasn't
the midlife crisis plastic surgery of
all
celebrities.
There was
where the nose is like a little more narrow.
Well, it wasn't
the
even
cheeks are like up
it
to
was
here.
more about the lip thing.
Oh,
why do we
the
have
lips.
to have gigantic lips?
Yeah,
I don't
the
know.
lips, the boobs, the butt.
Yeah. Well,
the whole package.
But she normally is just a beautiful woman, and it wasn't offensive because I've it was enough where I went, wow, I really miss seeing her look the way she looks, the way she looked last in one of her films. I for some reason, I'm almost over the Botox thing. I'm really, I don't know. I have to tell you a funny story. I was in Naples, Florida, and I was standing in the Walgreens line picking up some sort of medication for one of my kids. So Naples, Florida is a very beautiful place, and it's full of a lot of beautiful people. And talk about me feeling awkward and never feeling dressed and never measuring up. But is my favorite place in the world to paddleboard. So there's like this really great thing going on. You can be out in the ocean, and it is just so beautiful. And I have great memories down there, and I love Naples, and the people are extremely nice and wonderful. So I was standing in line at the Walgreens. I was in the first there. I was talking to the young lady helping me, and I just noticed usually I acknowledge people, but I noticed there were people over here, and I looked down at the national, magazines that are, the paper magazines that invent a lot of things. And I'm looking, and I start talking to this woman, and I say, why on earth do these beautiful, beautiful people have to have all this work done on their face?
You said this out loud to somebody. To the woman behind you or the cashier?
To the cashier.
Oh.
Why do people do this? I said, I don't understand. They're so beautiful. they're beautiful, and I didn't want to say inside because we treat that as a negative, like, oh, I'm only beautiful in my heart.
I'm ugly.
I'm
on the
so
outside.
I'm ugly on
I'm
the
a
outside.
POS, but I'm pretty. My cells are pretty.
And so
Yeah.
I'm sitting there ranting. I'm literally ranting.
Oh,
So I pay her, and I take
There's
the
someone
money.
with breasts like out here
And I
behind you.
looked to my right, and it was almost like they were lined up in a row. There were 3 women,
beautiful
and every
people.
single one of them, I had nothing to say. Extensive.
Did you just
work.
turn around? Like it's a slow motion
Extensive work, and I'm looking and I'm
Oh.
going. I just take my bag. I look at her. I don't say anything, but thank you.
You all are beautiful on the inside. I'm
No,
sure.
I know. No, I didn't say anything. I
might not be,
laughed, and I felt like a real sleazeball. Now, and here's the deal. Here's the deal. Plastic surgery is really whatever people want to make it. And I'm not opposed to it. If someone chooses to do it, that's really fine. But I guess more and more and more, it is that heart issue. And I'm not seeing people with plastic surgery have the
Right.
heart issue.
Oh, sometimes.
What? Here's the problem. And I think this is
I
where
lived
it
in LA
comes.
for 2 years. I understand the Botox. I worked on people with Botox and actual implants in their glutes. Yes. Like,
How do you work on that?
you
I don't even
don't.
want
That's
it.
what I learned.
Because you can.
I remember compressing on something that felt like Tupperware. And the person says to me, "Oh, those are my glute implants. You can just stay off of those." Yeah.
Oh.
But it's very much the image, So I had the line of Naples women, what I'm trying to say, but
You had her on your.
but a lot of them would unload their stuff to me too, and there really was a heart issue. I'm not saying, and I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with plastic surgery, but I think the fight to look younger or to present a
Yes.
certain way, or even people in my age bracket, I know 30 somethings. Granted, I'm, 30's on my horizon. I'm not there yet, but I'm close enough. But feeling this immense pressure to get injections in the lips. And I think there's the one mentality that says, oh, just let them be themselves. I'm thinking, is this who you really want to be? Like, what happened to embracing the natural features that we are given
Right.
and highlighting those versus
Yeah.
completely trying to deconstruct the face, reconstruct it?
Right. And
But I think there is oftentimes a heart issue, or not saying it's morally wrong, but my question is just why?
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 Well, okay,
Yeah.
I want to tell you one reason I think the women behind me, and
Like how many women?
I tell you, it's a struggle when you make the big change up to 6'0", for 2 years in a row. That rhymes. There is a pressure because that, as you love calling me a hot stack of pancakes. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mine are gluten-free and sad. And, but at the same time, there is a real pressure. There's a real pressure knowing, particularly if you're single or you have a husband, of keeping, I hate to say this, and this is not true of all men. Thank you, dear Lord. It is just true of certain segments of society that we run into. I saw it in Naples a great deal. And I'm not going to say it's every person in Naples, because and I want to tell you, gracious people, Botox or not, just gracious people. And that sounds funny, but I really mean this. But there is a real pressure.
Even if the brows are like this,
but there's
we're
a
very
real-
gracious here.
real pressure put on them to fit in and be beautiful people. Seriously, to keep. I hate to say this. This is going to sound like a slam, but we're just going to be honest and authentic, and I'm going to say it. To
Say what you need to say,
to
as
keep
John Mayer
your
would say.
husband,
Oh.
to keep your husband's
Ooh.
eye.
Ugh. Yeah.
And when you hit 60, you realize you're 60-year-old, all of a sudden you get these thoughts. A 60-year-old guy's not going to like me. He can go down 50 and 40s. I'm going to have to age up, or, it's always, always, always a different kind of thing going on. So I don't know.
The thing that I noticed, and I'm not speaking for all people because, again, I don't think all sort of plastic surgery procedures are bad. If someone's been in an accident, if there's trauma to the body or the face, like 100% get it, or certain health reasons for it. But what I noticed in Los Angeles with most of the Mattel, like, walking Barbies, like, the women who would walk in, I mean, these were the types of women who would have these types of Instagram pages and look like the walking supposed Barbie. But no matter how much exercise they did, no matter how large they got their butt, their boobs, their lips, no matter how long their acrylic nails were, the amount of makeup on their face, hair extensions, spray tan, like truly talking the full shebang out there. And that's not cheap either.
No,
this is a lot of money that goes into cosmetics and, aesthetic procedures, surgical procedures. But no matter the amount of everything they were kicking themselves on, like everything in their reality was still the same.
Yeah.
Which was, and I know this because they would unload their stress to me.
Yeah.
One of them, I remember this one woman walked in and this completely reshaped how I saw everyone in LA because I knew, okay, these people are beautiful, but they have deep problems and issues. But this woman came in and on her health intake form, we would have this checklist of things for them to indicate, like if they had medical conditions. And there was one place on our health intake form where it had list any traumas. So obviously, physical traumas where people might indicate an accident. And she put divorce on hers, which was so fascinating. Yeah. And there was this woman who had just come in sweaty from like a CrossFit class. She had like the lips. She was a beautiful woman. She was in her probably 40s. But I found that so fascinating. And it broke my heart because I thought, whoa, without her telling me a word, she's coming in for this, body work for tension she's having, but the tension on the inside and who she feels she has to be and the divorce that probably made her feel like a pile of nothingness and crumbs.
Being set aside.
Yes. And
oh, my heart.
I think there's nothing wrong with even wanting to feel pretty. Like I love to wear a good dress and some shoes that you feel really good in and some perfume. Honestly, it's a great feeling. Like when especially for myself, when it truly isn't so much for someone else, but I truly feel good in my own skin. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But I think when it becomes this pressure to alter your entire physical being to match something that you think you lack or someone's expectation of who you should be, or like you said, like even as you ease into another decade of life, feeling the pressure, which is interesting because I see it in my generation and see it as this immense pressure we have, in our 20-something, 30-something skin. But for some reason in my head, I always assume, women, once they hit a certain age, they don't have these insecurities anymore. They probably just, age with grace and, don't care about what people think as much. Maybe it's just pressure. So it's interesting to hear it from in your second year of being 60.
But you wonder, because I was just thinking historically, okay, let's go back to the Waltons. All things go back to the Waltons or Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
I call it Trek. I called it Trek for years. It's Trek. Star Trek.
Pretty kitschy.
Yeah.
70s show.
But the Waltons, you think about it, because it really did show, different generations of families being together. And if anybody knows anything about Olivia Walton, she's beautiful woman, beautiful actress. But I mean, she had to be tired. The women were tired, the men were tired. Everybody was tired because they work. They had to work for the food and everything. Sometimes I wonder, and with our culture, I love, how much I love the manufacturing and the way things have grown and made our lives easier and all this. whatnot. But at the same time, we have so much time on our hands that this is what we're concerned about. You know, how has this become the driving force of our lives when, you know, you take the flip side of plastic surgery. And there are places like Operation Smile that helps people with cleft palates and cleft lips and cleft noses. And those surgeries, you know, sometimes you can do a one-time surgery. A lot of times you have to have repetition on these. So how have we come from, you know, doing these surgical things to making elective surgery, to making it almost feeling necessity when, you know, 50 years ago we were, or not even 50, probably more than that, probably 70. No, probably the 20s. It was probably 100 years ago. You know, we were out in the fields. We didn't have time to think.
We didn't have time to do our brows in the morning.
We didn't have
Get
time.
our eyeliner on fleek.
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't.
I think it's a lot of, we have so much exposure now and terrible influencers.
Yeah.
We have the whole idea that Kim Kardashian is like a demigod,
Right.
who I think we have way too much exposure to things and how we should look. And I think we've traded who we are and even like the legacy we're writing, things we're doing for, oh my gosh, how do I look? Because that's what matters so much. And I used to, honestly, in my earlier 20s, which I can say now because I'm now officially in my late 20s.
You're a mature 20.
I don't know.
Welcome to the
It's very
world.
scary. But in my earlier 20s, I remember I would not even go to the gym to work out if I didn't have on makeup. Like, I would actually put on makeup and not just, you know, a little face coverage and, you know, a little spritz to my invisible brows. Like, the whole freaking shebang.
Oh, really?
Eyeliner. Yeah.
Eyeliner
Because,
to work
yes.
out in.
Because I was so afraid of, it was this deep feeling, I think for a lot of women, when I can really nail it down to going back to my headspace, because I would have annoyed me, and I do it, like, my past self annoys me now to think, wow, how much time I wasted obsessing. Like, I would spend sometimes over an hour in front of my mirror, like, literally obsessing over, yes, my makeup. And I wouldn't go to the gym. I would not be caught dead outside the house without, you know, I needed more than even just a stitch of makeup on my face. But what I learned was that it really was a deep unworthiness I was feeling on the inside, and almost like I'm not lovable enough unless I look a certain way. And the part for me that I remember, oh my gosh, I remember it so vividly. Like, there was this moment where I was absolutely broken over a lot of things in my life. And it was while I was in school. And just like anywhere else I would go in public, I would not go to school unless I had makeup on my face. And this was after high school. This was when I was in school for massage therapy.
Right.
And I remember a lot had just compiled. And I remember that morning, I just broke down and I didn't have time to put on makeup. And for the first time, and we're talking, this is like 7 months into school. For the first time in 7 months, I did not wear anything, nothing on my brows, nothing on my face. And I remember I tried to like walk in, not cry, you know, and, you know, I was able to kind of hide that from my classmates. And I remember this woman came up to me and she meant it. I can't describe exactly. It was so deeper than even, nothing about it felt surface level in how she said it, but she came up and it was like she looked into my soul and she told me, she said, "You are beautiful." And it wasn't this, oh, just trying to make me feel good.
Oh, wow.
And she said something like that, like, just, "You are so beautiful." And then someone else commented, like, "I've never seen you without makeup on your face." And it was weird because it was a time where I was like broken over things, yet that somehow freed something within me to let people see me broken open, gutted. And I wonder how many other women want that so badly, but we mask everything. And it doesn't have to be in makeup either. It can be in things that we have. You know, it can be in our social status, it can be in our career, it can be in our clothing.
I really
It can be in our social circle, the things we do, the things we post on social media, and also plastic surgery. But stuff can only stay stuffed down for so long, and it's going to have to come out at some point. And I think that a lot of the time we cover brokenness, shame, unworthiness, feelings of being unlovable, especially when we've gone through stuff that's hard, you know, and that hurts or that shaped us to where we hear that. So, I hear these different voices in our head that's telling us, you know, and I think recognizing those and naming those, you know, whether it was a loved one, whether it was a friend, whether it was a complete and utter stranger. But that to say, I think that once I heard those words, because that was a time where I felt truly like crumbs, and I felt just from the things that were happening in my life in that season, I felt unlovable. I felt unworthy. I felt a deep sense of shame, and I felt so unattractive.
Right.
But to go completely bare, not just with my face, but then to be able to even cry in front of somebody, because when they spoke those words over me, I just like remember like a tear came out of my eye. I'm like, who am I? I'm not supposed to do this. I'm supposed to be the person. Like my hair was bleached blonde at that time. I had a nose ring. But I noticed the more, whenever I was the most depressed and angsty and stuffing things down, was literally when I quote unquote look my best, like have my hair colored, have my makeup on.
Yes.
And not that I don't still wear makeup, like but I just see it so differently now.
Right.
And I feel like I don't have to look a certain way to feel a sense of self-worth.
Right.
Knowing, I think experiencing people and situations where no matter how you look or how you're perceived, because at some point we're all going to crack, right?
Yes.
Like even if you can get up every single day and, you know, put on your best self and your best skin, like we live in a broken world and we crack. And I think letting people into that you can feel so exposed and it's so vulnerable. But I think also being broken open can make you feel so free. And I think for me, at least, when I feel free, that's when I feel most beautiful. That was a word spell.
No, that was really good because you said you felt, but I think I wanted to interrupt you on saying,
Go
but
ahead.
I didn't want to
Go
because
ahead.
it was so good.
That was a long.
But it wasn't that you just felt that you actually believed, and something changed. And
it literally changed. Like I remember one of the owners of the school commented at the end of the year to the class. She said, "One of your classmates, me, has stopped wearing makeup." Like everyone knew. Like I was described by a classmate. It was funny. He said, "You know, when you first walked through the doors, you were like a California type girl who would probably carry some white chocolate latte from Starbucks." And then like, and here at the end, you come in without makeup on your face.
Yeah.
And even the things I felt more, things that I would even try to hide in my personality versus not just being unfiltered, but just, I think, honesty.
Right.
And I think that's something women crave, but sometimes we go about
so the
it.
question I have for you, this cracking open part you're
Yeah.
talking about being free.
Whew, it's scary.
How do you get there? I mean, because is it a constant push pull? Are we constantly working on it? Or because when you say that, it reverberates in me to say, yeah, I do feel a lot more settled in my soul. You know, and I go back to your client who wrote Trauma Divorce. You know, that does leave you, with a sense of unworthiness and, you know, just lostness or a breakup or whatever you want to call it. So how do you find this peace? How do we get it? That is really, really, is it lasting or is it a daily battle?
I think it depends, you know. Both. Because I think you can know something. For me, I know things deep in my heart. just like I have a really, really deep faith, but I go through seasons. I go through things where I question God and I question his goodness. And I think it's the same way with this. Like, I think I know deep in my soul, like, that yes, I am a free woman and I can, and I am free from the past, just like immense body image issues I had, where I like have starved myself all through high school, all through my earlier 20s, caked on makeup on my face, you know, put on all my best skin only to still feel just as crappy inside and unknown. But because there are things that will almost reignite those feelings, but I think because I've fought them before, and I think when you know how you feel and how you felt when you've had those breakthroughs, and for me a lot of it's very spiritual too.
Yes.
And I realize very quickly it's just as much spiritual as it is physical, if that makes sense. So it's a lot of like soul work going on too, but I think it's both. And I think it's recognizing the voices in your head.
Oh, there you go.
Because I think once you have tools and
scripture,
yes,
you know, I have to go back. I think you're right with the tool belt thing. We need that more than a makeup bag. The tool belt. Of
that's
scripture.
quotable. That's like Pinteresty right there. Wow.
Wow, that's just so important.
No, continue.
But no, I was just thinking when you were speaking that, knowing that if we are image bearers of God, what does it say to him that we're fighting this thing that's going on with us? You know, whatever we're dissatisfied in our bodies. And I don't mean, it's the rare woman who is not complaining about something. A very rare woman.
Right.
And if she's not complaining about it, maybe she's thinking about it. I mean, I do think there are confident women out there, and they really do have it all together.
I don't think I disagree.
No,
but continue.
I do praise God. Like when my body is functioning correctly, my organs and all that.
A holy
I'm just
confidence.
like, dear God, thank you. But the exterior, we're just constantly, why is this? Why do I have this? Why that? And I remember even saying to you in dance, like I when I was picking out dresses, I don't want any sleeveless dresses. And I think, you know, my daughter asked me why. So because my skin is all wrinkly here now. And I just look like because that happens. It happens when you get at 60s. You hit your 60s for your second year. It just happens. So, you know, I want to cover that. And then part of me with this last dance almost wanted to say, I'm just not going to worry about it anymore. You know, this is who I am. This is where I am. This is me. And I'm about ready to break free on that. But I still have some wrestling to do. But how? How do we work through this? How do we get peace? The idea of being an image bearer of God, how do I image bearer him well if I'm complaining all the time?
As in obsessed over your body image, how you're appearing to others, outward appearance?
You know, if we're just tying up our, you know, I mean, not only that, if my chief goal is to glorify the Lord. If I'm tied up, my brain is knotted up because I looked this way, I acted this way, I did this way, and I'm not talking bad behavior, but you know, like this wonderful functioning thing that the Lord gave us, this brain, almost fights against us. I mean, we do have, you know, if I'm a new creation in Christ.
I think a lot of things will always, as long as we're living and breathing on planet Earth, will be a fleshly battle. But I think the key thing to think about too, though, is if you have conviction about it and you're trying to do something about it, that means that you're staying in tune with the Holy Spirit, you know? And I think recognizing that is really important. But I don't think there is just... I think in culture, we try to have these man-made quick fixes of confidence as, you know, here's a weight loss program, here's clothing, perfume, makeup, all these things we can add. But I think, okay, so I love Audrey Hepburn.
Yes, you do.
Absolute, like truly, if I hope she's in the heavenly realms.
Yeah.
So I'd love to have coffee with her. In glory. Breakfast at Tiffany's with Audrey. No, but I was watching this documentary on her, and the trait about her that was so mesmerizing, because she was obviously very different from like the sex bombs of that era, but was her heart for humanity and truly just the emphasis on love. And I don't know her like religious background, or if she was more like spiritual, or if in her heart like she was a believer. I don't know. But that's the thing about her that captivated so many people in her time. It wasn't just the role she played in her movies, but who she was as a person.
Wow.
And I think that with the whole idea of thinking that outward appearance and the whole surface level skin deep kind of beauty is where it's at, I'm like, it really is. And it sounds cliche to say, oh, it's what's on the inside. But I think that can complement what's on the outside too. Like like truly the most beautiful women I know, and when I find people so very just captivating, is their joy, their smile. There's a woman at the studio we go to whose smile is so radiant,
Yes.
you know, like when she dances. Actually, there are like several people who truly, my eyes go to them every single time.
Yes.
Like they could miss a bazillion steps and I would never know, truly, because they radiate so much joy.
Right.
And it's not this fake kind of happiness. It's like when people say smiling with the eyes, there's something deeper,
Right.
so much deeper.
Right.
And I think that for me at least, I'm like, I want that kind of beauty. I don't want to feel like I have to plaster on a best self or only look a certain way, or know, oh, my love or my worth as a human is only based upon how my face looks. Because one day, if I live to be my 70s or 80s or 90s, I will be old and wrinkly and saggy, and, you know, I won't be the fountain of youth.
But, you know, I think we said this in another podcast, but I think you hit on it. There's something about the joy.
I think that's the fountain of youth. I really do.
Joy. I just say that again.
Joy is the fountain of youth. And you have
There we
that,
go.
okay?
Yeah.
Renee's going to cringe at me not complimenting her on the podcast. But at the studio, too, she's one of the people who you would definitely want to watch dance. But no, seriously, like,
Yeah.
because
It brings me joy.
you're
It brings
61,
me-
but you are a very, I mean, I know, and I think it's, I
You're
think
you're
it's,
making me nervous. I'm
I
zipping
think
my
it's
zip.
so healthy. I think it's very healthy, too, though, that you even open up about, like, your struggles. Because I think even the most joyful, seemingly confident women have the same, like I really don't think there's one woman who it feels completely flawless every single day.
Right.
You know, that would mean that we're like on the other side and we're within eternity, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's something within everybody. I 100% believe, but I think that you also are like a fountain of youth kind of person, because I'm 26, almost 27 in a few months. But, you know, I think you pave a great joy for other people to follow. And any person who I've talked to who knows you, like they describe you. See, it's so good. I love making people uncomfortable and lavishing them. So do you feel joyful?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I feel the older I've gotten, well, too, really giving my life to Christ and saying, here.
When you've gone through
steer
so
this.
much in the last, I mean, through a lot of years, but especially
The last 2 years.
the last 2 years. Yeah.
Have been, well, actually, yeah, they've been crazy, but they've been crazy for everybody.
Right.
But coming out on it with joy, joy is the thing. The joy of the Lord is my strength. You know, joy. I don't know what to say. Part of me wants to say joy is not being comedic, but joy, it just wells up in you and it just overflows. And I think that's what we see on the women who are, dancing in the studios and the people we walk by who, maybe that's what's missing obviously, if you take you shop the social networks and whatnot, you don't see the joys. But then when you see true joy, it is life-giving.
There's something in you. There's something in the people watching, or at least in me, that thinks, whoa, I want that.
Yes.
Yeah. Or it inspires you to just want to be around them. And that's what I told one of the girls. I told two of them. I said, I love watching you dance. I said, like, there is this contagious joy and your smile is just so warm.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, just to enjoy what you're doing in that moment. Yeah. That is a wholesome, pure, life-giving thing. There's nothing more beautiful.
So if joy is the fountain of youth, I mean, even for you, though, because I know, especially last 2 years, like, that have been so hard. Not everyone comes out on the other side feeling strong. And editor's note, Dylan, you might bleep this out, maybe not, but my friend described you as a badass. Because what she said and what I agreed with is so many people going through even the traumatic situations you've experienced and come out on the other side of. Not everyone chooses the life-giving road. They throw themselves into their own desires and almost everything they can to quench their pain versus even sitting with their feelings, overcoming it, and pursuing life-giving things. And especially even having, like, joy in the Lord. Like, not getting into your whole story from the past 2 years, I'm not prodding for that. But I mean, how do you maintain joy if we mutually agree that, joy is the fountain of youth? And I think what's missing from so much of the plastic surgery.
Well, I don't think it's something that's maintained.
How do you have joy?
I have joy because the joy of the Lord is my strength. I seek Him as I'm not joyful every minute part of the day, but there's something, I seek beauty in nature. We've talked about this before. But people are very life-giving or they're very life-taking. And I think it's very, very careful. You have to be very careful who, you're receiving information from, and you weigh it and test it against what you know about yourself.
Truth.
But I do think it's, I seek it in the word of the Lord. I seek it in really great friendships. I seek it in authentic, you and me being authentic. I seek it in good grammar.
Yes.
But so I think that's how we do it. We walk our walk. We invite the Lord in. I think that is it. The joy is inviting the Lord in. And all of a sudden, I find myself being way more childlike than I've ever been. Like, Lily's constantly, for some reason, she loves videoing me because all of a sudden I'll just start dancing.
Paparazzi.
And we've talked about that. We talked about dancing just being free. And I think it's, again, and we've mentioned this before, is not lifting our souls to people.
Right.
And I think that is the battle of, and really what we're spilling the tea on is lifting our souls. Who are we lifting our souls to?
Well, and I think no amount of, I sound like I'm just hating on Botox. I might have blood thrown at me. I'm really not. I'm just using that as my prime example for some reason. Makeup, Botox, insert your outward appearance of choice. But I think that ultimately we look for these things to patch up our problems, but really it's the deepest handiwork of the Holy Spirit that can do all of that work. It's just guised on the outside. Like, I posted something last year and my question was, if you were unzipped, what would be found inside of you? Because imagine if everything on the exterior, if you had a zipper and could just, like, what would be found in your heart and soul? Right. What are your deepest fears? What makes you feel alive? What do you hate? What wounds have you held on to? What wounds are you healing from? It's everything that makes people, the soul. 100%.
I think that's spilling the tea right there.
Wow.
I think that's the point of it. Is gone. I know. So what you're, give us a summation here. Can you sum up?
Oh, I'm not good at summing up things. I'm the queen of word spilling. I could let my tea bag do it instead.
Yeah, what was the first part?
Oh, it's a little yogi, but it says when your inner and outer worlds harmonize, which is really interesting. Okay, taking
Yeah.
it to a spiritual point.
Yeah.
It says,
Well, don't say the last part because it was the first part that did it. It's your inner and outer world
Right.
colliding when your heart somehow spills out in.
I think it's finding
Over.
it for me.
Yeah.
For me, it's been, I think, in finding a deep rest and satisfaction in God and how He's wired me up. And I think that's why, like ballroom dancing, running, I feel most beautiful in those, not because I'm wearing makeup or lack thereof, because I'm anything but outwardly pretty when I'm running, you know. But that's truly when I feel, I think beauty is something we think is just outward, but it really is something that's so inward that it ends up spilling out of you
Yeah.
and overflowing. And I think that kind of coincides with joy
Yeah.
as well, you know? So,
They hold hands.
yeah, they do hold hands.
You want to hold my hand?
I really don't.
And I think we're done here.
We're
What do you
done.
think?
Bye, subscribe.
Yeah, we would like for you to subscribe to Moral Tea Podcast on Instagram. And
You should hold our tea. With one eyebrow
and
up.
be with us.
Like Mr.
Live long and prosper.
Yes.
And may you have joy in this moment.